Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Eighth Light University. Happy St. Paddy's Day. This talk is about password managers. Are they a boon or bane? I am Mike O'Connell, Principal Crafter, pronouns he, him. Thank you for joining us today. We'll be covering the why rather than the which we won't be reviewing any specific products, but talking about the mechanisms and their associated solution. I'm not here to bash anything. I'm not here to enforce anything either. So starting with old versus the new, let's get going. One of the things that surprised me when I first saw it was the password notebook. My father-in-law kept a dog-eared A7 notebook in his breast pocket because he didn't trust technology. I can't blame him, to be honest. I don't trust technology either, but for different reasons. He kept his internet and email passwords there, as well as a handful of important sites. This had its shortcomings, though. I mean, the book couldn't be shared. It took ages to find a password. I remember him scribbling in it every time they changed the password, and he'd be paging through it. No, that's the old one. No, that's the old one as well. Eventually finding the correct password. The password reuse was high because easier to remember. And the risk of losing the book or destroying it in the wash was also high. The next one was from my old boss, a sea guru born in the 50s, getting into technology early. He did everything himself. He didn't trust other people. And I can't blame him, to be honest, either. I don't easily trust other people too, but for different reasons. However, his solution too had its shortcomings. If he wasn't near his MacBook, he couldn't get the password. If his technology failed, then his passwords would be irrecoverable. If his MacBook was stolen, then his secrets would go with it. It was a very basic C program that would encrypt and write to a Postgres database. So he was very reliant on his backups, but couldn't use it everywhere, unfortunately. So the internet has changed, kind of fundamentally. In the last about 10 years, the number of bad actors has increased dramatically. It's higher now after everyone went online during lockdowns. I'm not going to cite any statistics here, as a simple search will reveal these changes. I worked as a registrar who marketed over 12,000 top-level domains, 1,200 top-level domains. And this meant tracking 300 passwords or more to various services and servers and registries around the world. And this was not something that could be done easily. You know, there's no Excel spreadsheet for this. You have to share this, you have to manage this between your team and so on. So the other thing to consider also is what happens to your digital assets after you become incapacitated or pass away. How will your partner access the heating bill or insurance companies? How will your colleagues access the services that you regularly access? Needless to say, it's better to have something rather than nothing to manage your passwords. So what solutions are better than meticulously storing every site in a notebook or special laptop? One of the options is a private cloud. This will be a fairly technical approach and needs some experience. So this is not something that the tech support generation would want to support our elders with. It doesn't handle simultaneous use, as the vault could be modified by one person at a time. This probably also wouldn't fly with mobile support. So the digital legacy would only be available through sharing of the vault file or storing the master password in a safe or will. But effectively, storing the vault in a shared drive, such as Google or Dropbox, and having an application access that vault. So we consider it a private cloud of sorts, so it's accessible everywhere. But mobile support is not great in that regard. Next option is the de facto browser. This is the go-to for many people. Browser password storage, it's a convenient solution. Let your browser handle the password nitty-gritty, and you just sync between devices. The problem here is we generally know very little about the encryption technologies, if any, used by the browser company. It's also free, so we can't expect premium service. And I know I'm going to regret this, but it's still better than nothing. There's unfortunately no digital legacy options unless you share your browser account details with partners or friends. So one of the more technical solutions is the self-hosted service. Some password managers offer downloadable software. You host this on your own servers, on your own infrastructure, at your own cost. This pushes the security infrastructure owners away from them and onto you and your server provider. This includes backups, availability, integrity, and so on. The provided client software is generally good quality, and it provides the same or similar degree of accessibility as full cloud options. Mobile support also fairly good from the products that I've seen, and sharing as well. Some of them provide safe, secure file sharing and password sharing. The digital legacy options here, they're scarce, as the infrastructure is reliant on you or another experienced party to maintain the services. And there's no way of notifying the server administrator, since that's you, that you've passed away, so you can't effectively hand over the keys. Finally, looking into the full cloud solutions. Value-added services of full cloud include secure sharing capabilities, reuse detection that scans your vault, checks for reused hashes or passwords, as well as leaked password detection through dark web monitoring, file dumps, etc. They're monitoring these services. They'll provide you notifications if you've leaked a password somewhere. This vault, since it's in the cloud, can be accessed from almost anywhere on almost any device. It's a must for the modern world, being able to access it from your mobile, through your TV, through your laptop, etc. Changing a password on one system will soon reflect on others. And you can share specific passwords with colleagues or family, whether they're in groups or specific shares. So you can manage single user logons where they don't support a role position, for example. This unfortunately puts a security onus on the cloud provider and is the higher risk option. Again, it's still better than no password manager at all. The options for digital legacy are arranged. They include pre-arranged invites. You can share your account with somebody, including handoff processes and encryption keys. How these are implemented, though, should be assessed on a case-by-case basis. So we've established what solutions are available. Let's look at the tools, and how the tools handle the actual password management. I'm sure you've heard it all before. Complex passwords are harder for devices to crack, but harder for people to remember. Length makes things exponentially harder. Try to aim for both. Many people use 3 random words rule. That's easier to remember the words, but throw in some characters in between. But if you're using a password manager, then just let that generate the password for you. Max out the password field. I, for instance, have a default 24-character length with latest numbers and symbols. I do find services that only support 12 or 20. Some services go as high as 120, 200 characters on a password field. We did find some interesting differences in support. One very popular provider accepted 128-character passwords on one system to create your account, but then only accepted a 48-character password on a subsequent system using the same login. So we effectively locked ourselves out of our underlying support, just from their systems and integrating legacy and whatnot. So that brings the skeleton key, your master password, that unlocks access to all associated services. So if you use a vault, you need to consider the strength of your master password as well as other factors. Moving to a vault means you're no longer in full control of your data. Losing the password or software failing means you lose access to all sites stored within the vault. If you accept that risk, then try to mitigate the impact of data loss as much as possible. Enable multi-factor authentication and or biometrics. They're simple yet effective means of blocking access to your vault. Just in terms of MFA, I don't recommend storing the secrets in your vault, personal preference. A lot of people store the passwords and MFA information within their password managers. It kind of defeats the purpose of MFA. It is convenient, I understand that, but try to store these off device in another system, or in case the device is stolen, hacked, or your vault is cracked. This introduces additional points of failure, I understand, but these also can be mitigated. MFA can be backed up, copied, etc., as needed. If your vault is cracked or hacked, or the vault file is stolen, you don't want them accessing your system, and that's where MFA does kick in to stop that additional angle. Also know that the vault and the master password is the skeleton key to all your secrets and passwords. People are storing a lot more in password managers these days. It's address information, it's credit card information. You've got to be very careful about how much information and how you're securing that information. Don't reuse your master password anywhere else. If you have to, copy it on a piece of paper, secure that in a safe place within your home. It's not ideal, but if you forget your master password, you can lose access to all your systems and services. And technically, if you think about it, a password vault should not be recoverable. If it is recoverable, that means there's another encryption key or mechanism for the provider to access it. It's a bit like the TSA locks. You put them on your bags, hoping to block access to everyone else, but TSA still has access to them. You need to make a plan in case you forget your password or if something happens to you. And don't expect the password manager to recover your vault for you. Also, make sure your software and browsers are up to date. The amount of times I've seen the bright red update button when people are sharing their screens is terrifying. Nicole, you're included there. Especially considering these updates are often fix critical flaws or zero-day vulnerabilities. This includes browser extensions and operating system updates. Having a backdoor into your system is a major issue. If your system is hacked or available to hacking, that can give people access to your vault. So, assuming you're going the route of cloud-based password managers, we'll take a quick look at the good, the bad, and the ugly features. The good. I think the first feature here is the most important. Since you don't have to remember every password, it means that every site gets something completely unique. Password managers have features that detect password reuse too. So if one site is hacked, they can't use that information to log into another site. There are other features which include leaked password detection and notifications, which I mentioned earlier. The password and site data should be fully encrypted within the vault. Some providers only encrypt password data. Others encrypt everything. Check check to see what your provider supports in this case. Knowing that your car is that blue model over there is one thing, but having the keys to it is another. In terms of encrypting the full vault, you'd rather the bad actor didn't know anything about you at all. Domain matching is another one. Homoglyph attacks are all the more common with the introduction of IDN domain names. That's internationalized domain names. Particularly with the introduction of Cyrillic character sets. It has a number of characters that are visually identical to the standard US ASCII sets. So your PayPal.com might not be the PayPal.com you expect it to be. And it's almost impossible for a person to spot the difference. However, it's really easy for software to differentiate on those characters. And this will prevent you from filling your password into a possible fake site. The bad. Is the password manager software easy to use and practical? Does it support multiple platforms? If something is a challenge to use, then it simply won't be used by the general population. They'll find another way of storing it somewhere else. It means all the benefits will be lost, and people will resort to insecure practices, which lands us back at square one. The next one is, how recoverable is your vault information? If the password manager provides recovery services, this means there is a backdoor to your master password and vault. Look skeptically at this option. Ultimately, vault security is only as good, or should only be as good, as the master password and or encryption keys. If someone else can get in, if you've lost these, then your vault shouldn't be considered secure. Finally, using a password manager introduces a single point of failure, both on the software and master password. This could mean a massive inconvenience if access to the vault is lost or compromised. the ugly. Your data is no longer within your control. This means that if your password manager provider is hacked and the bad actor has access to your vault, yes, it may be impossible to crack open if your master password is strong enough, but the vault is no longer in your possession, so it becomes a matter of time and technology. Some providers have opted for additional security, which eliminates the time factor through the use of large encryption key sizes. Auto-completion of passwords or using the autofill feature can create a leak of critical information. Some password managers have been affected by being spoofed by an iframe within a legitimate website, leading to your username and password being accessed out of your control. This functionality can be disabled, but it leads to additional issues with clipboard monitoring. It's best to ensure that your provider has iframe security, or you choose where to populate the data. Costs are another factor. Some services run at costs as you add more members or capability. Would you truly trust a free service though? Finally, software failure could block access to your vault or block you from logging in at all. Human failure is always a factor, either by inexplicably saving the incorrect information or mistakenly revealing your master password. So, do we accept the trade-off of convenience versus risk? It's not possible nor practical to try and remember every password without some level of reuse. Using a password manager greatly assists here. We also become unwitting advisors or tech support technicians to family and friends. Password managers add convenience, but this places us in an awkward position where our recommendations may result in some data loss due to bad actors. This comes down on you from your friends and family, and they hold you accountable for it, which is not ideal. Always encourage strong passwords and good security practices. Always have that disclaimer, the security of your vault is up to you, including software updates and password strength. Ensure that your users understand why having a strong master password and updating that software is important. And I say users, I use very loosely. So with all the security and protection, what are the real risks? There will be other mechanisms to break in when the software barriers become insurmountable. Ensure that you never disclose your password to anyone. Nobody should be asking for your credentials, and you shouldn't be releasing them. This is especially important for the more trusting individuals. We all need to encourage a healthy degree of skepticism here. To the password manager software companies, be careful who you hire. Do the necessary security and reputation checks on the staff before you employ them. And as mentioned before, the data is no longer in your control. You must either accept that risk and plan for it or find another way. When copying and pasting, that data is available to all applications within your operating system. Some operating systems have improved clipboard access management, even asking permission before accessing the clipboard. This isn't supported globally as yet, and it's software dependent. So be aware of what you're copying into your clipboard. Malware is an ever-present danger. Having a bad actor running software on your local machine will result in a data leak. Whether they're monitoring keyboard access or clipboards, that data can be accessed. So use an antivirus wherever possible. Alluded to before, iframe grabbing is a simple mechanism where a bad actor loads an iframe, possibly as an advert, for example, with username and password hidden fields. This can cause your password manager to populate it automatically, as the main domain matches the known site, but the iframe doesn't. Disable autofill here if your password manager does not have iframe protection, or have a look at another provider in that case. Your digital legacy is another issue. What happens to your passwords when you die? Does your password manager provide options for digital legacy? If they do, it could be a backdoor to your vault. Can this be hacked? Can someone just forge a death certificate and access your vault? It may be better to handle the digital legacy yourself. I hope we all agree that using a password manager encourages safer internet use and better security, especially with those that have nothing in place or recklessly reuse passwords. Something is ultimately better than nothing in this case. There are some generally accepted risks, so remain skeptical and be vigilant. I hope this presentation encourages you to use a password manager in whatever form you're comfortable with. Thank you for your time and attention, and have a wonderful St. Patrick's Day. Be safe out there.